Hello and welcome to this presentation on autism with aggression, violence, self-injurious behavior by Robin Goff, family herbalist. My name is Ken Heckenlively. I write for Age of Autism, and I've also written the book Plague. And I wanted to open up this talk today by saying that what we in the autism community have done is we have what we seek is an answer to a problem. And I like to think that our search for that answer is ecumenical in nature. That is, we listen to many points of view until we get the answer for our kids. I always like the example of Ben Franklin. People would ask Ben Franklin, "What is your religion?" Because Ben Franklin would go to the Catholic Church and he'd make a donation. He'd go to the Presbyterian Church and he'd make a donation. He'd go to the synagogue, he'd make a donation. He'd go to the mosque and he'd make a donation. And I like to think that if there's something uniquely American, it's that we are ecumenical in listening to other points of view. And oftentimes when people are pursuing new ideas, they generate a lot of controversy. And I think that we shouldn't be concerned about the controversy. We should be concerned about finding out whether this information is true and helpful and can give guidance for our kids. So in my work at Age of Autism, I always seek out the most interesting, provocative, forward-thinking people. And it was through that I got to know Robin Goff, and I got to know something about her theories. I got to look into them, and my own personal opinion is that this is a very important piece of the autism puzzle. I don't know everything about what it means. I don't know how it all fits together, but I deeply respect those people who are original thinkers, people who have courage, and I think that there are few people in this world I respect so deeply for having that courage and original thought as Robin Goff. So please welcome her to the stage.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. My name is Robin Goff, and I am a mother of a 20-year-old son with autism. I'm going to present to you the evolution of autism that has reached into extreme, dire crisis. Our children with autism who are reaching puberty have what may be considered a second regression. Our children begin to change, lose skills, memory, and become aggressive, self-injurious, destructive, and violent. I have been able to reduce and control these behaviors through the use of an herbal technique. I have been assisting severe cases of hundreds of families worldwide, successfully calming our children down and keeping them home. My group is called the Trailblazers. Many of the amazing families are here with me today. I would like to acknowledge my best friends, Rupa, Susan, and Dawn. They have been an incredible force. There are also many of the Trailblazers families here with us today. They are wearing red. These are some of the most amazing parents of older children who have suffered through a great deal. What I'm about to show you is not just about my child, but what autism is for all of us. I need to mention that my presentation is highly private, personal, and graphic. Viewer discretion is advised. Some of the material that I will be presenting here may be disturbing to young or sensitive participants. I would caution to those in the audience who are sensitive, please move to the back row if you need to leave. I would like to start with a disturbing look at the dire crisis of evolving and aging autism.
Don't tear things up, don't tear things up. Be gentle. There you go. Just gentle.
First, I want to back up my story and tell you a little bit about my family. My son Ty is my second child. After his birth, we cuddled and kissed him for the rest of the day as he looked wide-eyed and smiled and nursed rigorously. The next day, our son was taken from us, and within an hour, we were told that our son had fallen ill and may not make it. Simultaneously, I was given a pile of paperwork to sign, of which I obediently did. My son spent 10 days in intensive care. We brought our son home, and over the next 18 months, we abided by the typical well-child vaccine schedule. It wasn't until 2 years later, and after reviewing my hospital bills, I found out that my son was given one of the first trials of the newborn hepatitis B vaccines. As we began to watch the mental and physical health of our child decline, we were able to make a connection to the vaccines. In 1999, I found that several of Ty's exact lot numbers had injured 70 children. 5 children died as a result of the exact lot numbers that my son had received. In preparation for this presentation, I decided to revisit the vaccine adverse effects reporting system, now online 17 years later. I was shocked to find that my son's lot numbers were never removed. These exact lot numbers continued to send babies to the hospital with seizures. They stopped breathing, paralysis, shock, and death. There are now over 508 reported adverse events and 20 dead babies from my son's exact lot numbers. Most of the children died the very same day as these vaccines, and the death was considered sudden infant death syndrome. Online, you can find our case, Goff versus Health and Human Services, online. On behalf of our son, Ty, if many of you are aware of the strict limitations of the Vaccine Injury Compensation Program, there is a 36-month statute of limitations, and we were dismissed under that ruling. We were dismissed as not filing timely enough after 3 years of litigation. Our son was 4 years old when we filed, and that was not timely enough. We were left with a disabled child for the rest of his life with no support from those who process, recommend, or enforce the vaccine policies. My family has always been outspoken on what happened to our son. We spoke before the media and kept the schools informed regarding the vaccine damage and ensuring vaccine personal exemption rights. I formed the Utah Vaccine Awareness Coalition. We attended vaccine hearings in Washington, where a little book I had written was used as evidence. I Don't Want to Be Ty was a self-published book which describes our journey into a vaccine-injured child and finally our experience filing with the courts. Eventually, Ty became weary of the attention and we stopped giving interviews and lived our lives. Our son remained in the special ed program. We carried on the years, trying to give him as much opportunity as possible. As the years go on, our children hit puberty. Our son went from a medium-functioning child who could set an alarm, dress himself, and make his own breakfast, walk to school without supervision, to one that lost skills and short-term memory. He began to wander, lose sleep, and language. Our son was an artist at heart and drew people all around him. But soon his drawings became hostile and perplexing over about an 18-month period. It was gradual and confusing for us. The mania set in our son staying up all night, drawing on his furniture. We then began to see scratches on his body, bite marks, and we asked him who could have harmed him. Soon there was damage to our home, with chairs broken and holes through the walls. We actually confronted our neurotypical children because Ty was so mild. Finally, we began to witness the aggression outright, but it was escalating into dangerous destruction. Glass was always the first to go, as well as his favorite things. This is always something that was followed by extreme remorse, but his behaviors continued. Self-injury was also mounting. Our son began to completely misunderstand our expressions and laughter. His behavior became so erratic that my husband and I had to pile on top of him to stop him from self-harm. He would break his own bones right in front of us and often grabbed a pen or a pencil and attempted to jam them into his eye. The pure strength of our children is frightening. If the behavior goes public, the police may become involved as our children cause havoc in the neighborhood in their fits of rage. One of the most dangerous things that has happened in the world of autism is when a manageable, learning disabled child turns into an animal, an insane being. As a parent, the trust and love for this child begins to fade. In order to rid chaos in the home, the parents begin to consider an institution. This is dangerous because the very people who unconditionally love their offspring is now willing to relinquish them. I want to state here that I am not a physician, but I have a keen knowledge on human health and the effects of parasite infestation. I am not a scientist, but thanks to my biology teacher husband, I use the scientific method. I am not a chemist. I am, however, a certified family herbalist. I have been working with children who are the forgotten, the rock bottom, those that doctors have dismissed. Within my hundreds of kids are those that are bedridden, those that mutilate themselves. With this protocol, we are now seeing relief for our children. We are peeling back layers and are introduced for the first time to a child who is remarkable, grateful, brilliant. Some of you may know me as a contributing author to the second edition of Healing the Symptoms Known as Autism. I had a section of the most severe cases of autism, the children who are past the golden age. I had a section for the most severe who I address the process of parasite removal in older children. For 2 years now, I have been working intimately with about 200 families who have older children with autism. A majority of these families have children who have evolved into a variety of additional behaviors, including aggression, seizures, violence, self-injury, and destruction. Many of our children did not have these behaviors until puberty. By hobby, I am a genealogist, that is, a research of family history. For 20 years, I have cut my teeth reading through 18th and 19th century reports. I have found these documents to hold truths without a flicker or worry of later questioning or accountability. In my presentation, I will be making bold statements, which may appear to you as personal opinion, but it's not that at all. I will be presenting material from actual published medical books and textbooks for students and practitioners. There are well over 6,000 pages on the subject, written between 1868 and 1922, and I have been pouring through them. Occasionally, I will be quoting from these books, and just so you're able to distinguish, I will be highlighting these parts in blue. What has happened to our children? This article, written by Dr. Eustace Smith on digestive derangement, was published in 1869 in the British medical journal, The Lancet. It states that when a newborn child's stool is naturally comprised of mucus, but when a baby is exposed to too many viruses at one time during critical developmental periods, this attack can put a child's digestive system into panic mode. So how are our children getting exposed to multiple and continuous viruses? Like Dr. Smith says, if a child is exposed to several viruses, such as vaccines, at once, that process can cause the mucus to continue and become chronic. As the digestive system is trying to deal with these multiple toxins, the child becomes unwell, and the environment is now perfect for parasites. This same physician published a well-respected book entitled The Wasting Diseases of Infants and Children in 1885, which was reviewed and marveled as the final word on every aspect of child health and disease. In this book is a chapter on worms. You might not be surprised that in 1885, children were treated for worms as part of the daily life. Increased viral exposure leads to mucus, which gives a home to parasites and worms. This chapter gives great detail of worm infestation symptoms parallel to what we see in autism. It is hard to ignore. Signs of worms in children: loses interest, sits listless, saliva running from the mouth onto the pillow during sleep, grinds teeth at night, often wakes in a great panic, sighing, sobbing, hiccuping, belly is swollen and hard, irritable temper, delirium or stupor, squinting, sleepwalking, pupils dilated, itching of the nose and anus, upper lip often swells, nosebleeds, stuttering, loss of voice, loss of hearing, convulsions, chronic diarrhea, or constipation for months. So from here, we want to take it through the pages of historic parasite explanations. Nearly all symptoms of ill health are caused either directly or indirectly by parasites. And my favorite, among 138 persons who were insane patients at an asylum, when autopsies were performed post-mortem, roundworms of several species were always found. When my family realized and accepted the possibility that our son's autism may be caused by parasite infection, it was not long before we could see that we had our answer. Historically, it is known that children are at higher risk for worm infection regardless of their hygienic conditions. This is also understood that worms produce material that are toxic to their host, and these toxins can change the chemistry of the blood. We began a protocol to remove the parasites, and soon after found evidence of parasites and worms in his stool. We then saw a change in our son, including his countenance. These books and pages, thousands of pages, all address the chemical changes in the blood, including lower leukocytes, hemoglobin. The most universal symptom of parasite infection is the mere presence of eosinophiles. The mere presence of eosinophiles is a marker for parasites. Despite this historic information, our families have spent thousands of dollars on lab tests, and the results showed that indeed there is presence of eosinophiles. 100 years ago, he would have been treated for parasites with these indicators. As our son reached puberty, we began the newest autism treatments, of which started with expensive lab work. The laboratory guide indicates that parasite tests would include 22 variations of parasites, but in the end, they really only tested for 2, Giardia and Cryptosporidium, an organism found in HIV patients. Despite the negative results and the false sense of security that put us in denial for a time, we started an anti-parasitic protocol. In this photo at the bottom shows over 400 feet of worms that we got out of our son less than 6 months after these negative results. This is not just my family either. I have sent out requests for negative lab results to our autistic children that were followed by undeniable parasites, and I was able to find plenty. Upon speaking to a family friend who had just finished at the top of his class as a laboratory technician, I asked him how much training he was given to identify parasites in human stool sent to laboratories. He told me he was really not trained on that, and that, after all, he was told that there was no parasite problem in the United States. These photos beg to differ. So here you have it. Autism equals parasites. And in the older kids, the parasites are very large, and this is just how large they get. Parasites have been around longer than man, longer than dinosaurs. In order to understand how to kill the parasites that have lived in our kids lifelong, there were things I wanted to understand. What toxins are they filled with? I was able to get a steady stream of worms out of my son by using my herbal technique. Remember, these worms only started dying when we applied herbs that kill worms and parasites. These get pooped out, and I retrieve them from the potty, wash them, and then conduct tests. I started with a simple ammonia test applied directly to the parasites. The test came out in the higher than dangerous levels of ammonia. If you recall, the historic parasite books repeatedly mention that parasite excretions and waste is damaging. The symptoms of high-level ammonia to a human being include confusion, seizures, intellectual impairment, behavior disturbances, chronic neurological symptoms, and disorientation. I did a shout out to the families around the world, and they found the same results that I did. Family of children with autism across the United States, Canada, Europe, India, and Australia. We all had the parasites testing and dangerous levels of ammonia. We did further testing and found amphetamine excretions. The amphetamine tests were conducted using the Narcotics Identification System. We found the same results repeatedly. A consistent result of positive to amphetamines. A secondary test through a dip card had the same result. Behaviors associated with long-term amphetamine exposure are also familiar. My son is disabled, unmedicated, and drug-free. The results from this test help us to understand that autism is a chronic state of toxic parasite infestation. The parasites are spewing ammonia and amphetamine chemicals. Our children are living in a drug-like state from parasites their entire lives, and it is labeled autism. You may know me because of my historical interest in the amount of worms that I have gotten out of my son. I have gained the nickname the Worm Whisperer. So far, I have gotten out over 1,000 feet of parasites out of him in 2 years. He has lost 60 pounds, 40 to 45 pounds has been total worm. I have photographed about 95% of them. I have over 100 videos I have produced in my observation of these worms. There's a great deal in the medical world who want the parasites identified, and we have been able to identify tapeworm microscopically. But because the worms I have access to are not microscopic, and everything can be observed from the naked eye, the $2,000 microscope I have is pretty much obsolete. The endless availability of large parasites and the information in the parasite books, I have come to understand these living things that are capable of existing within a human being for 60 years or more, mostly undetected. These photos are from my son's parasites. I have found that there's over 5,000 species of tapeworm, and not all are segmented. That there are some books that say the length of a particular parasite never gets above 1 foot, only to find that later it was realized the same parasite can grow 25 feet long. Even then, information was evolving. It is shocking that this information was lost a century later. The perceived idea of what a worm looks like in a host that was dewormed in a small young animal with a digestive system of only 1 foot long, that worm will look a great deal differently than the worms that have lived within a host 10 to 20 years and a digestive system that is 35 feet long. This is about 2 months of parasites from my son. I photographed just the beauty queens. They, in death, can deglove their skin and be chewed and partially digested while making the way out of the body. I have an understanding of how parasites can build a false layer above them and why a child can have a camera scope run through and find nothing, yet this child then expels hundreds of large worms. I think it is important to mention that a child does not come better with each worm that is expelled, but by months and months worth of worms expelled. If you have a person with 1,000 needles in them, they are not recovered just by removing 30. They may feel slight relief, but not total health. Once I was asked about my background training in parasitology, I would say it has been a total immersion of about 2 to 6 feet a day of fresh human parasites that I clean, I examine, and, well, I keep. As a parent who has gone through the vaccine injury court system and this fiasco in our children's health, I am keeping the evidence for all of us. Just in case you were wondering, it is in a 25-year-old freezer, double deep, hidden in a secret location away from my home. If parents have to suffer the burden of proof, then I will do this for all families. I am just that crazy. Bring it on.
Morning, Trailblazers. It's Saturday, March 28th, 2015. My name is Robin Goff. I'm going to pull it up. Then we're going to take a look at it. And as you can see, higher than it should be by far in the danger area. These parasites have a great deal of ammonia. You're going to see about a little bit up from the bottom, right in that area. It kind of looks like someone's behind, but it's just like a little insert slitty area. That is the uterus of the female roundworm. But just it's a perfect worm, if you can see it, all in one piece that came out today. An incredible specimen that we had that we could see not only the dynamics of it being a pure worm, but we were able to see. But what's also interesting is when we flip this skin piece over onto its back, you can see where some of the intestines from this particular parasite is still inside. So you can actually pull up right in there some of the intestines of this parasite. You can see these little notches. There's little notches that have appeared on here that you'll see. Those little notches, the parasite will develop in order to get a better latch on to the intestines.
To a reddish, which that is again showing positive for amphetamines. This is our secondary test. The symptoms of long-term amphetamines including hallucinations, thought disorder, aggression, dilated pupils, diarrhea, restlessness, seizures, sleep deprivation, hearing voices, urges to harm oneself, severe anxiety, confusion, increased aggression, and repetitive motions, among other things. These things are testing positive for amphetamines.
I am aware that despite what I have presented to you so far, there are still those who question if what their eyes are seeing is true. But for those of us who are living it and see it every day, we know how much this is a CDC fiasco. If you are still unbelieving, well, you have a syndrome. Worm denial syndrome. Or WDS. So where did the parasites come from? That is the question asked most often. At one time before the 17th century, man believed in spontaneous generation, a belief that smaller animals such as fleas, maggots, and parasites appeared from dust or dead skin. But through the invention of the microscope, it was found that a whole new world of lower animals existed, just waiting for opportunity. It took 200 years for the world to accept this. So where do the parasites come from? Lower animals waiting for an opportune host. Where else did parasites come from? As mentioned before, according to the wasting diseases of infants and children, the favorable opportunity manifests itself through mucus disease developing from an overburdened viral overload to the digestive system. One of the critical times is in babies under 6 months old. An overload of viruses at this time can lead to mucus disease and subsequently parasite infestation. So a viral overload at the time of opportune. So where else did parasites come from? From the vaccines. Vaccinations are, in a broad sense, inoculations into the system of weakened or dead parasites. But why? Why would this be done? It depends on what paragraph you're reading. One reason it was believed, introducing a small quantity of parasite excretions into man is sufficient to give passive immunity. But just a few pages later it says, parasite symptoms are different in each individual. So now we have a third reason. Parasites are actually put into the vaccinations. So what else is known about parasites in humans? We find out more when we see the extensive studies and capabilities of parasites within humans. Parasite eggs fed to human subjects cause lung problems. Parasite eggs are successfully put into vaccines and injected under the skin. Parasite eggs put into vaccine will turn into larva form and go into the lungs. Nearly all symptoms caused by parasite eggs cannot be diagnosed with any certainty. Children used in experiments with exposure to parasite larvae caused successful fatalities. After introducing parasite eggs into the human body, it can be found everywhere: the brain, eyes, liver, spleen, kidney, lungs, bones, nervous system, beneath the skin, everywhere. Parasite eggs turn into larvae and cause death through pneumonia. Appendicitis is the result of damage done by parasites. Inflammation in the body is due to presence of parasites. The presence of parasites gives rise to cysts and the formation of tumor-like growths. Parasites can cause excitability in the sexual organs, causing masturbation in younger children. If too many eggs are given, the liver becomes changed and the host will die within 2 weeks. This test was done on mice, dogs, and children. Parasites introduced through the vagina remain alive and multiply through the body. Most of the damage done is through parasite excretions. Parasites grow quickly, and a 51-meter-long tapeworm has been found on a 4-week-old sheep. These are photos from my families. The same in humans. 31-inch worms found in 5-year-old children in the United States. These children are autistic. The use of lower animals in human healing continues. Maggot therapy and wound healing continues to be experimented on humans, but now they're finding that while the maggots are eating toxic pathogens, what the maggots are pooping out are pathogens even worse than what was already infecting the wound. This waste is of worse consequence than the garbage collected. My husband and I were able to obtain a vial of tetanus vaccine. In this vial, we made 24 pools and examined the liquid contents under magnification. 21 of the 24 pools, we saw a variety of toxins, including undetermined parasite eggs, skin material, lime rod material, algae, and fungus, and encapsulated toxic formations. Only 3 of the 24 vaccine pools had clean bacterial indicators. This explains how one vaccine vial can give different results or symptoms in different people. Now on to the protocol. This adventure does not involve just my family, but with thousands of families worldwide. I mentioned that I have a group. Well, they're more like a family. And we have over 200 older children. I work with thousands of other families around the world in Arabic, Hungarian, Italian, Serbian, Spanish, Japanese, and more, because we're all getting the same results. One of the cruelest things parasites take from our children is language. In experiments done on dogs in intentional worm infestation, not only did the dogs lie rolling from side to side with episodes of seizures, but the dogs stopped barking. They lost their language. And it was not until after the deworming of the animal the barking returned. Even though this experiment was conducted in 1864, it was surmised that the children became deaf and dumb because of worm infestation. To recap, the parasites are testing in high ammonia and amphetamines. This process can be visualized as a jar full of rocks with sand poured over the rocks and water poured over the rocks and sand. The rocks represent the larger parasites such as the roundworms, tapeworms, hookworms, and other large masses that are housing additional worms. The sand represents the bacteria and viruses, and the liquid represents the toxins excreted by the parasite and bacteria. In the medical textbook and journal, it is repeated how the parasite excretions can cause intoxicating effects on the nervous system, causing hallucinations, delirium, and other disturbances. Our first step is to remove these toxins. The process recommended in historical medical textbook and the detox process in parasitology is the use of enemas and high injections, colonics. We additionally add other detox measures such as salt baths, dandelion tea, cayenne, mangista, which works as a blood cleanser to remove these toxic excretions that are causing a torment of behaviors and suffering. The next step regards the bacteria and viruses. The parasites are continually accompanied by bacteria and viruses. The sand in the jar represents the bacteria, viruses, and pathogens. Our obstacle is that the excess mucus and parasites have caused a disruption. We deal with the mucus by applying these methods written historically 130 years ago, and we are using the exact formulation of herbs, such as aloe leaf, licorice bark, and tincture of cardamom to make digestive tonics. The mucus helps to remove and take away the home of the parasites and get the digestion back on track. It is here I have been able to develop my own techniques. I have been asked what my background training is on parasitology. It is a classroom in my bathroom, cleaning and comparing the condition of the parasites and observing the behaviors in my son and his discomfort levels. Parasites produce poisons in the process of death. There are those that will come along and feel that their medications can remove all the parasites in one weekend. What they don't understand is that killing too fast or too harshly is not only going to torture our children further with the high toxic buildup within them, but very possibly kill our children. The parasites alone are so full of poisons that to have their death all at one time, or even too many at one time, is horrifically dangerous. The parasites have a process of death. Bacteria will immediately swoop in to eat the dead parasite who also peed and pooped in death. Now there are dangerous levels of ammonia and amphetamines in direct contact with the insides of our children. These toxins are now setting them up for seizures and a sensation throughout their body that hurts so bad that the only distraction comes from harming themselves, biting, hitting, clawing, trying to stop the pain inside their body, and that is just the beginning. Here is a video of my son in a tortured state passing a parasite without several components that I add later.
Easy, easy, easy.
Hit the blood.
Easy, easy. Easy, easy. Keep tight. Relax. Get through this. You've done it before. You can do it. Just relax. Relax, relax, relax. Come on. Come on, come on, come on. You're okay. Easy.
That is the torture I want to eliminate. So what needs to be done? Well, we have a few problems going on. We need more hydrochloric acid to kill the parasites, but that's too low because of the extreme mucus. We're also dealing with decreased oxidation within the tissues. The body's not reacting correctly to the presence of parasites. We're also told that the body needs to have active white blood cells that are unable to capture, devour, and the smaller parasites such as bacteria. If we understand the death of a parasite, and if we realize that the excess toxins and bacteria are involved in parasite death, then if we give a formulation that assists to bring down the excess bacteria, would it help? Yes, it did. In 1814, a chemist and inventor, Sir Humphrey Davy, mixed potassium chlorate and hydrochloric acid and made chlorine dioxide. This historic combination that kills bacteria and other toxins assists in giving relief to our children's torture during the process of death. Yes, it did. It worked. Old is gold. Using CD, or chlorine dioxide, which states that it is effective against bacteria and viruses, is used effectively. Here's the condition of my son's parasites with and without CD. The parasite on the right is bacteria-ridden and highly toxic and causes a great deal of torture expelling, as you saw in the previous video. When allowing CD, or actually a formulation of CDH, chlorine dioxide holding, where we settle the gases, our children are able to get assistance in lowering the natural process of parasite death that involves massive bacteria. So the child goes from this to this in a comfort level in expelling parasites. I understand that there's a great deal of debate and speculation on the use of CD in autism, but I can speak for my family and many other families of older children with autism. What we are witnessing is that CD appears to keep in check the levels of toxicity that builds within our children. You can see that my son suffers greatly without it. My son has actually dosed himself with CD. When CD is present in the levels to kill the bacteria and the dying parasite, that is how I get a clean kill and I'm able to write with the worms. Many of our children are able to express to us how CD is needed for them in their daily comfort. Our nonverbal children will write, "I like CD because it's good for my brain." If we're understanding the duties of the white blood cells, if we know what they are supposed to do, if we see by the condition of the parasites and see what the white blood cells are not doing, if we understand that toxic buildup is and causes our children to have mental disturbances, then we can understand why our children are asking for these methods to help ease their mental deliriums. Step 3, the kill. The rocks in this jar represents the parasites. These parasites take time to kill. Remember, we are killing living things inside of our children without causing harm to our kids. The parasites fight back. Their very presence in humans has fooled man for thousands of years. The technique to kill them needs to be skillful. How do I know these things? Parasites are amazing. They are incredibly resilient and resistant. They can live in formaldehyde, crude oil, and petroleum products. Antibiotics cannot kill them. Their symptoms vary so greatly that modern man is unable to make the connection. If the body detects a parasite and then begins to build antibodies against them, the parasites can change their chemical makeup to avoid detection and remain in the host. This is why many methods to exterminate them fail time after time. The parasites may die initially, but then they build up a tolerance to anything used beyond 2 weeks. In death, the parasites prepare for the next generation and will increase laying eggs when they see they are under attack. In a study performed on infested llama herds, the treatments were divided into pharmaceutical systematics and herbs to kill parasites. All the animals receiving the prescription medications died, and autopsies revealed that the actual cause of death was the bacterial infection related to the decomposition of the dead parasites. That is why we're also mindful of the toxins. That is why there's a place for CD. There are complaints from families that are expressing that they are continuing to see evidence of parasites coming out, yet their child is not improving. That is because the medications that are given are no longer working and the parasites are just shedding their skins, not dying. We need to make sure we're always killing. These are all the variants that we're dealing with in their demise. The technique I use is a method of anti-parasitic herbs in a tier system. There are weaker and lower herbs such as garlic, ginger, rue, tansy that we rotate. We choose one herb, give with meals 2 to 3 times a day, and even with a strict diet of gluten-free, sugar-free, and milk-free products, the parasites will still eat what your child is eating. So we give herbs that the parasites hate and that which poisons them while giving safe nutrients to the child's body. We move up slowly to a higher tier system, giving a blast of only one herb with meals for 2 to 3 days. Then we quickly move to another herb, never allowing tolerance to build up. We do this all month long, and we always give the before-mentioned cayenne and mangista as detox and rotating days on tonics to help repair the chronic mucus caused by the viral and bacterial assaults given to our children in infancy. We're always dealing with the parasites reproducing, and we know that parasites can withstand extreme temperatures. However, the eggs cannot stand heat. Many of our children have a body temperature that is lower than normal. A body temperature of 100.4 will kill parasite eggs, so a nice low-grade fever has been shown to help stop the eggs from developing. We also use methods to bring the body temperature up. One of the most effective herbs is to use freshly ground cloves. Fresh clove oil kills parasites. Earlier we mentioned cayenne used daily, as well as ginger can help raise the body temperature. Yarrow made into teas can help bring the body to a sweat. Many may be considering, as we did, bringing the body temperature up with saunas, but remember some roundworms can withstand the higher heats, so you can just piss them off, and in the process your child may begin to rage. If the infestation is not down adequately, so you may want to wait until infestation downs are lowered before adding saunas. Cayenne is also a very helpful herb. It helps to remove mucus from the body. It appears to sear the parasites, and when I test the ammonia levels on the parasite, it brings the levels down some. It is a natural phenol, so it helps to kill parasite eggs and heals digestion. I did a test on my son's pupil and found his pupil decrease an hour after giving cayenne. The herbal protocol involves a rotation of about 20 anti-parasitic herbs. It takes a bit to get the body in a toxic state so that when the body can safely start expelling the parasites. The beautiful thing about herbs is they're available worldwide. There is guidance to techniques, but always local herbs in every country can be used, just as long as the herbs are anti-parasitic. All forms of this protocol can be used even in regions of the world where Amazon does not ship. Any herb can be made into liquid forms that can be taken orally. We continue the diet, the detox, the tonics. We add the herbal rotation slowly, going to higher tiers until we reach tier 3, which are the big gun herbs. They work best if encapsulated from fresh herbs for those who can swallow pills, or can be given in water in a liquid tincture for the non-pill swallowers. We also make an anti-parasitic herbs and salves to rub on our children's bodies. It can take 3 days to 6 weeks to prepare, or the coconut oils over the stove can take about an hour. I'm often asked if the marketed essential oils can be used. We are using plants that are anti-parasitic, parasite-killing properties that we slather our children down with. It would become very expensive to go that route, and I'm not really sure that many of these oils are anti-parasitic. Either way, there's a very inexpensive way to make your own oils and salves for this situation. It takes takes a toxic environment for the parasites, killing them from the inside out. We have a mom in South Africa who will make an anti-parasitic herbal bath to put her son in. We use the same oils in the ears. Many of our children will self-injure to the head. They can feel the parasites moving around in this area, in the sinuses and the ear canals. Some children have parasites in the gum of the teeth. The olive oil anti-parasitic mixture is harmless, as listed historically here. We find this helps to decrease self-injury to the head area by putting drops in the ear, rubbing the oil mixture on the face, the head, the scalp, onto the gums of the mouth to move the parasites out before irreparable damage is done. We do have a few children who have lost an eye or hearing, so controlling blows to the head is a priority. In the first few months, as we kept a toxic environment for the parasites, they eventually start dropping. After a few months, as time goes by, you start killing the bigger parasites. You do start seeing them after a few months. The healing process is tedious. The child is expelling an infestation of parasites and toxins from their body. Our children can sleep 12 to 17 hours a day. This rest is needed. In the first year, our son spent hours a day on the toilet as he was read novel after novel. As the parasites fight back and cause the children's obsessive-compulsive disorders to increase, my son was many times carried to the bathroom or to bed because he was unable to get through his compulsions in a timely manner. The road to healing is a long one. Our children are on a roller coaster of swirling toxins that are eliminating every day. They have been so profoundly ill that their bodies stopped attempting to remove the invaders. But every day we plug along and remove the parasites and viruses, bacteria and pathogens, our children become more and more human. 18 months before we started the protocol or had any idea why our son was disintegrating, he began to stay up all night drawing on his furniture. He drew these. It was not until 2 years later that we began to understand that he was trying to tell us about the worms. He even drew them 2 feet long and with notches. Our nonverbal children are telling us that our efforts are helping. I am feeling really bad. I think doing a salt bath will help. The people should know that when their kids are squealing, they are in pain. The herbs and the CD together, along with the baths with the salt, does the best in assisting with the worms and them dying. I like the cayenne and the wormwood. Here are how some of our children are now progressing.
Give up. It's just the weight of the world. When your heart's heavy, I will lift it for you. Don't give up, because you want to be heard. If silence keeps you, I will break it for you. Everybody wants to be understood. Well, I can hear you. Everybody wants to be loved. Don't give up.
It's fine. And don't give up.
In 1922, the author of Human Parasites and Human Disease states in paraphrase, "Scientists are leaders of the world, and while they blaze the trail, they are contributing to the popular ignorance of many important facts of parasitology and preventative measures. This is deplorable. There are quack doctors who prey upon the gullibility of a greater part of the human race and willfully mislead and scatter seeds of misinformation on the progress of health. That has put us into a pitiful extent of misery and suffering. As a new idea pops up, it takes not decades, but centuries to penetrate the popular mind. We continue to see this mindset 93 years later. Let's stop this repeated history. Even everything that I have presented here, I realize that there will be those who want more proof than what their eyes see. They will not believe. All of this suffering most likely caused by unchecked toxic allowability within our foods and the overuse of preventative medical programs. Even with the massive amounts of pathogens and worms coming out of our children, they still want to stay firm in disbelief. And to those I say, we do not care to waste time and money on lab tests. We care not about the exact identity and species of each parasite. If these are not worms, then why is it that when we use anti-parasitic herbs, then long worm-like substances come out? The symptoms of worm infestation and that of autism match up, and we use the methods to remove the parasites, then the symptoms of autism decrease significantly. We are all seeing clearly the same thing. We see toxins from our children, that we are not alone. We have the ability to care for our children and remove the toxins from our children without medical or pharmaceutical assistance. There are those who want to sit on a throne of approval and think that we are waiting for a nod that what we're doing is effective. We simply don't need them. We have lost precious years in our children's health, so we're moving forward in parasite elimination. The train is leaving. We have no more time to debate. We do not seek assistance, approval, the agreement, the employment to those outside of our world. Frankly, many of those people are the cause of our children's ill health. As parents of children with autism, and especially those with older children of autism, we all know too well that the years have passed as the arguments continue over the reasons our children have become ill. I must confess, I'm grateful for the worms, because now there's something we could do about it. We know what's wrong with our children, and the only medicine I need is that what I can buy at the dollar store or grow in my own garden. Thank you. Too far.